The Vietnam War, a troubling period in American history, is marked by a series of unseen and unheard operations that were once shrouded in secrecy. But things cannot stay hidden for too long, and that was exactly the case with these events. Slowly but surely, one by one, these happenings have come to light, casting a dark shadow over the horrors that the US government once committed. Let's take a look at some of these events. Operation Ranch Hand. In the mid-1960s, Operation Ranch Hand unfolded as a covert mission with the aim of clearing away the dense vegetation in Vietnam that provided cover for the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese forces. This clandestine effort involved the widespread spraying of herbicides, with Agent Orange being the most notorious. Shockingly, around 20 million gallons of this chemical were showered over 10% of South Vietnam, affecting the lives of approximately 4.8 million Vietnamese people. The aftermath was nothing short of catastrophic. The once lush landscapes transformed into barren wastelands, disrupting the delicate balance of nature. The consequences extended beyond the environment, triggering famine as vital crops essential to the Vietnamese economy were annihilated. The most heart-wrenching impact was on the health of the Vietnamese population. Agent Orange, named for the orange band on the drums it was shipped in, contained a toxic chemical called dioxin. Exposure to this harmful substance resulted in severe health issues for countless Vietnamese civilians and soldiers, as well as American troops. The toll included skin and lung diseases, cancers, and alarming rates of severe birth defects in subsequent generations. Despite mounting evidence, the US government took years to acknowledge the link between Agent Orange exposure and these devastating health issues. It wasn't until 1991 that Congress enacted the Agent Orange Act, recognizing the connection and providing disability compensation for affected veterans. Full recognition and compensation for all those impacted, both in Vietnam and among American veterans, remains elusive. My Lai Massacre. The morning of March 16, 1968, etched a dark chapter in the history of the Vietnam War, unfolding the tragic tale of the My Lai Massacre. This horrific incident stands as one of the most chilling episodes, revealing the brutalities of war and the toll it takes on innocent lives. In a small hamlet called My Lai, American soldiers, under the belief that the villagers were Viet Cong sympathizers, embarked on a search and destroy mission. What transpired was a nightmare of unimaginable proportions, the indiscriminate killing of 347 to 504 unarmed civilians, among them women and children. The brutality inflicted upon the unsuspecting villagers was a stark contrast to the principles that should guide the conduct of war. The initial aftermath of the massacre was shrouded in secrecy, with the U.S. Army's after-action report falsely portraying it as a successful engagement against enemy combatants. The truth began to surface thanks to the courageous whistleblowing of helicopter pilot Hugh Thompson Jr., who witnessed the atrocities from the air. Thompson's decision to intervene and protect civilians marked a rare display of moral courage in the midst of chaos. Subsequent investigations and court-martial proceedings were initiated, yet the outcomes left a bitter taste of incomplete justice. While Lieutenant William Cayley, the officer in charge, was convicted, many perceived the trials as an attempt to scapegoat a few individuals rather than address a systemic problem. Cayley's sentence was later reduced, and the sense lingered that the true scale of accountability was never fully met. Operation Phoenix. In the shadows of the Vietnam War, Operation Phoenix emerged as a clandestine endeavor, born out of covert warfare and shrouded in controversy. Initiated in 1967 and spearheaded by the CIA, this program had the audacious goal of destabilizing the Viet Cong infrastructure through methods that raised profound ethical concerns. Unlike conventional military strategies, Operation Phoenix focused on civilian targets, believed to be associated with the Viet Cong. This approach employed a web of informants, secret detention centers, and, most alarmingly, extrajudicial executions. The program's tactics were not only unconventional, but also blurred the lines between military and civilian spheres, raising serious questions about the moral compass guiding counterinsurgency efforts. The truth about Operation Phoenix didn't come to light through official channels, but gradually emerged thanks to the diligent efforts of investigative journalists. These reporters played a crucial role in uncovering the darker aspects of this covert operation, shedding light on the ethical complexities inherent in the pursuit of counterinsurgency. Despite the controversy surrounding Operation Phoenix, there's been a notable absence of official investigations or accountability. The lack of a comprehensive examination into the program's activities leaves a haunting void, allowing the specter of unchecked power to linger. Tiger Force atrocities. During the tumultuous days of 1967, Tiger Force, a highly mobile reconnaissance unit, etched its name into history for all the wrong reasons. Rather than upholding the ideals of military service, this unit gained notoriety for perpetrating acts of brutality against Vietnamese civilians. The unsettling list of charges included indiscriminate slaughter, the mutilation of bodies, and other horrifying acts that stained the fabric of human decency. In the aftermath of these atrocities, an investigation was launched in 1971 to uncover the truth and hold those responsible accountable. Shockingly, despite finding substantial evidence of war crimes committed by Tiger Force, no criminal charges were brought against the implicated soldiers. It was a stark illustration of how the wheels of justice seemed to have come off of their tracks. The true extent of Tiger Force's transgressions remained largely concealed until 2003, when the Toledo Blade, through an extensive investigation, unearthed the suppressed findings. This journalistic endeavor played a pivotal role in bringing to light the harrowing details of Tiger Force's actions, underscoring the essential role of independent journalism in uncovering uncomfortable truths about our past. The Toledo Blade's investigative work not only exposed the suppressed evidence, but also provided a voice for the victims and survivors of Tiger Force's brutality. It emphasized the critical role that investigative journalism plays in holding power accountable and revealing the untold stories that might otherwise be lost to history. The CIA's secret war in Laos. Amid the chaos of the Vietnam War, a covert conflict unfolded in Laos from 1964 to 1973, orchestrated by the CIA and shrouded in secrecy. This covert operation, known as Operation Barrel Roll, remains one of the least acknowledged facets of the broader Vietnam War narrative. Operation Barrel Roll had a specific mission: to disrupt the Ho Chi Minh Trail and provide support to the Royal Lao government. The chosen method was extensive bombing campaigns over Laos. The impact was devastating, resulting in tens of thousands of deaths and displacing hundreds of thousands of Laotians. The suffering inflicted on the people of Laos, caught in the crossfire of this secret war, is a somber chapter that has not received the attention that it deserves. What makes this episode even more troubling is the fact that the US government deliberately kept its involvement hidden from the American public until 1970. This concealment not only deprived citizens of the opportunity to engage in the democratic process, but also highlighted a concerning bypassing of democratic oversight in foreign policy decisions. The notion that significant military actions were undertaken without the scrutiny of the public or their elected representatives raises fundamental questions about the principles of democracy and government accountability. Operation Minh. In the quieter corners of the Vietnam War's tumults, a covert and clandestine drama unfolded: Operation Minh. This covert bombing campaign, veiled in secrecy, took place in Cambodia and cast a dark shadow over the pages of history. Initiated to disrupt North Vietnamese supply routes, the operation intensified during the critical period from 1969 to 1970. The essence of Operation Minh lay in its strategic goal: to hinder the flow of supplies supporting North Vietnamese forces. What distinguished it was the cloak of secrecy that enveloped the entire campaign. Executed without public knowledge or congressional approval, Operation Minh became a hidden chapter in the larger narrative of the Vietnam War. The legacy of Operation Minh forces us to confront challenging questions about the exercise of power and the ethical boundaries of state secrecy. The covert nature of the bombing campaign not only kept the American public in the dark, but also circumvented the democratic checks and balances that are supposed to guide such significant military actions. The operation's concealment from public scrutiny raises fundamental concerns about the accountability of those entrusted with making decisions that affect the lives of many. Pentagon Papers. One of the most revealing threads was the Pentagon Papers, an extensive and classified study commissioned in 1967. This comprehensive document laid bare the intricate details of U.S. political and military involvement in Vietnam from 1945 to 1967, peeling back layers of secrecy to expose a troubling pattern of deception woven by successive administrations. The Pentagon Papers, initially kept confidential, were intended to be an encyclopedic history of U.S. engagement in Vietnam. What emerged from those thousands of pages was a stark revelation of how the truth had been manipulated and obscured. The study pointed fingers at government officials, revealing a concentrated effort to mislead the American public about the intentions and actions of the U.S. in Southeast Asia. Despite the monumental impact of this disclosure, the consequences for those responsible for the deception were remarkably minimal. The revelations contained in the Pentagon Papers fueled public outrage, contributing to the growing anti-war sentiment of the time. The Nixon administration, desperate to prevent further disclosure, sought legal action to halt the publication of the papers, resulting in a landmark Supreme Court decision in favor of press freedom. The legal repercussions for those implicated in the deceptive practices were scarce. The individuals responsible for orchestrating a prolonged and multi-administration misinformation campaign faced little accountability. This lack of consequences underscored a disheartening reality, leaving many to question the true extent of justice and the aftermath of such a profound revelation. Operation Speedy Express. Operation Speedy Express stands out as a stark reminder of the devaluation of civilian lives and the lengths to which the U.S. government went to conceal this harsh reality. Executed by the U.S. 9th Infantry Division in the Mekong Delta from December 1968 to May of 1969, the operation aimed to impede Viet Cong access to vital resources. The strategy employed during Operation Speedy Express took a grievous toll on innocent civilians. The reliance on heavy artillery and air power resulted in a disproportionately high number of civilian casualties. The establishment of nighttime free fire zones, where anything moving could be deemed a target, amplified the indiscriminate use of firepower, leading to tragic outcomes for non-combatant populations. Perhaps more disheartening than the devastating impact on civilians was the subsequent response from the U.S. government and military establishment. Despite mounting evidence of the alarming number of civilian deaths, there was a glaring absence of a proper investigation into Operation Speedy Express. The government did not take decisive steps to scrutinize the operation's aftermath, and the military dismissed reports suggesting that civilian casualty figures were exaggerated. This lack of accountability and investigation reflects a disturbing disregard for the value of non-American lives during the Vietnam War. It exposes a broader pattern of deception and denial, where the U.S. government was willing to obscure the truth to maintain a positive public image and perpetuate a war that was increasingly losing favor at home. If you're liking our videos so far, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you. The misreporting of the Gulf of Tonkin Incident. The Gulf of Tonkin incident, unfolding in August 1964, stands as a pivotal moment in the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War, revealing a troubling tale of misinformation and misrepresentation that shaped the course of history. The incident served as a pretext for a substantial military escalation, ultimately leading to a protracted and devastating decade-long conflict, causing profound social and political upheaval. At the heart of the matter were assertions by the U.S. government that North Vietnamese vessels had launched unprovoked attacks on American naval destroyers, particularly the USS Maddox, in international waters. This narrative was the catalyst for the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, a congressional act that granted President Lyndon B. Johnson broad powers to use military forces in Vietnam. The veracity of these claims would later be called into question. In the years that followed, doubts about the Gulf of Tonkin incident began to surface, even at the time of the occurrence. Some details crucial to understanding the true nature of the events were withheld from the public and Congress. Questions arose about whether the reported second attack on August 4th involving both the USS Maddox and the USS Turner Joy actually transpired as described. The misrepresentation of the Gulf of Tonkin incident illustrates a stark example of the manipulation of information to achieve political and military objectives. This misinformation fueled a significant escalation of a war that would leave an indelible mark on the world, claiming the lives of millions and causing profound social and political unrest. The ignored impact on Vietnam veterans. The Vietnam War cast a long and haunting shadow on the lives of American soldiers who served, revealing a painful chapter in the nation's history. Unfortunately, the aftermath of the war saw a profound and shameful neglect by the U.S. government of veterans' physical and mental health needs upon their return. The psychological toll on Vietnam veterans was staggering, with many grappling with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. The horrors of combat, coupled with the hostile reception some encountered upon returning home, resulted in severe emotional and mental distress. It wasn't until 1980, several years after the war's end, that PTSD was formally recognized as a diagnosable condition by the American Psychiatric Association. This acknowledgement came largely due to the relentless advocacy of Vietnam veterans and mental health professionals who fought for the recognition of the profound psychological wounds inflicted by the war. The provision of mental health services for these veterans was far from adequate. Many struggled to access quality mental health care through the Department of Veterans Affairs, or VA, facing long waiting times, a lack of specialized services, and the stigma associated with seeking help. This negligence led to an increase in homelessness, substance abuse, and tragically, suicide among Vietnam veterans. These issues persist to this day, underscoring the long-lasting impact of the government's failure to address mental health adequately. The Vietnam War unfolded as a complex tapestry of interconnected reasons, leaving indelible scars on nations involved. It wasn't merely an ideological clash, but a symphony of intricate motives. It originated from the Vietnamese quest for independence after enduring centuries of foreign rule, notably French colonization. Ho Chi Minh, a pivotal figure, initially found support from the United States during World War II, as both resisted Japanese occupation. The Cold War altered alliances, making former allies adversaries. The Gulf of Tonkin Resolution in 1964 escalated U.S. involvement, driven by fears of communism. The war, marked by escalating troop deployments, contentious policies, and the grim Tet Offensive, became a tragic chapter fueled by overconfidence, Cold War tensions, and imperialist tendencies. The North Vietnamese Army, or NVA, and Viet Cong, VC, though not excelling in direct combat, employed creative booby traps to thwart U.S. forces. Among them were punchy sticks, snake pits, flag bombs, to name a few. These ingenious and terrifying booby traps, far from primitive, showcased the guerrillas' creativity and strategic thinking, leaving a lasting legacy in military history. The war may be over, but the memory of these traps remains etched in the annals of warfare, emphasizing the asymmetrical nature of the conflict and the perpetual state of uncertainty and fear faced by U.S. forces. So what are your thoughts on all of this? Let us know in the comment section below, and make sure to like the video. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.